let you know.
Word.
We're
Man,
kicking it with Rob,
fluffy head.
C5, C6, D10 quadriplegic from a motor vehicle accident, 2016.
Sean Peter McCartney, affectionately known as the Angry Quad. C456, we're getting that reverb again. C456, I fell on my head.
And today we're talking about the evolution of life, physically and then mentally adapting.
Oh, I see the problem. I see the problem. All right.
So,
Is that
me,
better?
yeah, so me adapting was very hard at the start. I remember I couldn't even hold a pen in my hand. So I took a little tape and put it around it and used the little thing on an iPad to talk to people.
Well, I mean, you're going to adapt, dude. You don't. It's one of those things, it's just, you don't know what you're capable of until you're put in a position where you have to make that change. You have to adapt. You don't have any luxuries. You don't have any options. It's just the way it is. Whatever it is you do in order to do what you got to do, that's always going to be an adaptation. So if you decided to, make a change or figure out how you got to do what you got to do and everything, it's just that's although I will say, as it pertains to just life in general, that adaptation is only natural. I mean, we started as, amoebas and animals, and now we ended up, I'm looking at you on a computer. So, obviously just the evolution in and of itself brought us to where we are.
I think I had struggled mentally after being paralyzed
Oh boy.
really bad.
Oh boy.
And it was like everything that I loved to do, I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't run sound for bands. I couldn't program and do things as quick as I used to. It really, mentally, I struggled bad.
You suffered a life changing injury. You went through an episode in a situation that took you from where you were, whoop, and put you over here in a rather strange and unusual box.
Yeah,
And, it's mentally, seriously, the idea that anybody can go through something like this and not have some type of mental aspect or some deterioration. First off, the physical part of it, you know, if you broke your neck, there's a very distinct possibility that you bashed your head somewhere along the lines. You know what I
yes.
mean? And, you know, you're going to experience a concussion, which is a form of brain damage. And, it's just, uh,
Yeah, and for me, as you know, I had two really bad accidents. My first
hmm.
accident, I went 70 miles an hour into the pavement, broke my jaw, and I think it's it may have contributed to the break in my neck. I really think.
Well, the first time you had an accident, did you break your neck, or was that where you only broke your back,
No,
or did you get the double whammy on the second time?
just the jaw on the first accident.
Huh. Just the
And
jaw on the first time. Incredible.
right.
All right. Well, I believe Nicole has joined us. Nicole, how you doing, kid? Hope everything is well.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, think about it, Rob. I mean, I was in an accident when I was a kid. I was 20 years old, and I came this far. Well, actually, I think it was like about 6 inches thereabouts. That far from dying. My head hit the windshield because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. I made a zig when I should have zagged. I hit ice and pow. But if I would have hit not here, but here, not here, but here, would have been over. I had
Right.
27 stitches up and down my forehead. It cracked my skull. Full blown concussion, everything else like that. I walked away. I was fortunate. However, I went like this. I shan't do that again.
I tried to play it off like everything was good. After I was paralyzed, like, yeah, I can do this. Until I actually
Really?
started half been doing it. And I struggled every part of the way.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you say that after your injury and stuff like that, that you had struggled, I mean, what do you mean? Like, what do you think? You were just like, just another day at the office?
I actually, in my head, I thought I was going to leave the hospital and I was going to be all right. Everything was just going to be good.
Really?
That's what I thought.
Well, what did you have anything to, how did you establish this thought? I mean, I don't get it.
I don't know. It's like everything that I've ever been through, I just walked away from it. And I really thought that I was just going to walk away and it was going to be good.
Well, I'll agree with that. I think I've mentioned on several occasions, I've fallen off of roofs. I've fallen out of trees. I've been hit by dump trucks. I've been hit by the buckets of backhoes. I have fallen into irrigation ditches. I've fallen into footings. I've been hit with 2 by material in the back of the head. Wow, and knocked completely unconscious. I have been punched. I have been slapped, bitch slapped, kicked, everything else under the sun. And I just went like this and walked it off. This injury, on the other hand, I knew I was fucked when I hit the floor. I was like, well, this is a new one. And, it's just, you know, I I didn't really have a perspective at that point in time when I finally came out of the coma because I was put in a coma for a couple of weeks, a drug induced coma.
Right, me too.
I really, where you're optimistic look at it, I was just confused, absolutely
Yeah,
confused.
you were awake after your accident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I wasn't. I was already in the coma and all that. I don't think it really hit me until I was out of the ICU and into the rehab unit. Is where I said, wow, what am I going to do?
Well, I've got a question for you. You have no recollection. Did they have to cut you out of the vehicle?
No, actually, when we hit the wall, my body ended up on top of the driver. And
Okay.
because I was DOA, the law here is they go for the first person that is more savable, I think, is
Okay.
how they did that. So they took me out, put me on the ground, and then went for the driver. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, DOA. How many times did you die?
3.
You beat my score. I only died twice. But I did die a couple other times in research, so I got you by 1. Just trying to, I'm just stating the facts, man. Just another day at the office, kid. It's just, I'm not exactly proud about it myself, but these are just facts we know to be true. Terrible, man. Life is a fucked up place, dude. It just does strange, unusual things, puts us in interesting situations where we must adapt to our new surroundings. And it's just, this thing right here is the first thing that you have to harness. And it's the most difficult thing to harness. But once you get this thing, God willing, everything else that goes along with it will start to cooperate. But an injury of this magnitude says, nah.
Yeah, I was really lost, I think. You know that I wasn't out of bed for a long time. So it was hard for me to really know what I was capable of. Until Tara showed me your video, I never really started adapting to life. I tried, and I just failed, and I let it take me. That was it.
I find as if that you have to go through that. You have to go through that really dark place and shit like that. You have to really, and well, I'd like to say you don't have to, but you're going to go through that little dark period. It's almost like with artists. Remember, Picasso went through his blue period. He was a little depressed, so his paintings then in turn followed suit. So once again, I'm going to go back to what I said prior. When you experience an injury like this, and not just experience, but actually have to live through and go through, it's very difficult to be optimistic in the beginning. I mean, I realized you were optimistic. You sort of thought, just another day at the office.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what you did was wait. I'm under the impression from the conversations that I've had with you over the last, couple of years, is that that you just thought, I'll wait a little bit, my body will kick in, and everything will be all good.
Like after I got out of rehab, I did try to do what I used to do. I did run sound on New Year's right after I got out of rehab, and I struggled. I couldn't do it. And then my grandfather died, and then I just gave up. I said, I just want to die. I didn't really care.
Well, I'm sort of curious. You said after you got out of rehab, you tried to do sound and stuff like that. Did you have any additional physical ability? And because you decided just for the next year or two to fuck off, that everything turned to shit? Or what's the dealio?
I don't know. It's like when my grandfather died, I didn't have anything left. It was really hard on me. And then not having the care that I should have had.
Gabe in the house. Gabriel Harris. What up, kid? Yeah, but my point being is that you know what? I don't quite understand what you're trying to say. Is that you got out of rehab, you tried to do what you used to do.
Yes.
But then your grandfather died, God rest his soul, and then you gave up after that. The question I posed was, did you have ability after you got out of rehab, and then everything turned to shit after the level of depression that hit you?
Yeah, depression. I just couldn't figure out how to do anything.
You're missing my question. When you first got out of rehab, you
Yes.
said you tried to go back into what you were doing. In the state that you're in at this point in time? Or did you have some type of function? I mean, I don't know
No,
how whatever way to ask it.
I had the function that I have now.
Okay.
I tried to, running sound is just some knobs, some sliders, your ears. So I thought I could do it. But
Okay.
when it was in front of me and I was there,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I tanked. I just didn't have it. I wasn't adapted to it.
Okay. Well, how did you get from point A to point B? Were you in the chair? Were you everything else like that? And you were just like, no problem?
That's
Even
what I
though your
did.
hands couldn't move, your arms weren't functioning and shit like that. And you were like, no problem. I'll get over it. And
That's
then
what
when you're in the scene,
I thought it was going to be okay. I thought I'm going to be able to do this.
okay.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's get past that entire thing because I think I'm hitting a nerve on you right now, kid. So I'd rather avoid that entire thing. But still, at the same time, it's as for me, like I said, I was in the ICU quite a bit and stuff like that. So in stuff like that,
And stuff like
remember that one? Yeah, I gotta work on getting rid of that, but it just seems to not go away. It's been here for a couple of months and stuff like that. Much like yourself, well, actually, unlike yourself, I had a pretty good notion that I was sort of fucked on this one. I figured maybe, just maybe, there would be some I would recuperate to some degree, and well, obviously I have, but not exactly to the extent that I'm actually looking to. I want more. I always want more. I will work for more. But that being said, the problem that I ran into is I found myself out of ICU into rehab. When I got to rehab, I started really scratching my head. ICU, I just, much like yourself, I was just like, they must just be holding on to me to harvest my organs. I was like, because, this is just a joke. There's no way in the world that this is, the only reason that they're keeping me alive. Once again, ventilator, much like yourself, tubes and shit going everywhere. And I was like, this ain't right. And, probably much like yourself, the veil of depression, it hit me like a punch in the face. And it really is. It's difficult, to get through that whole thing. And then I went from there. I was at my sister's house. Did a few things over there. I was there for 96 days. And I got to tell you, my thought is I think I would have been better off going to an assisted care facility. Family is a funny thing. We'll discuss that in a minute. What's Gabe asking? Can you read that?
He said, I thought I was going to get better. After a year, that's when I started to really questioning. I thought I was going to get better, but then it really started kicking in.
Of course, but I mean, obviously, we're all three of us are on the same page with this whole thing. We begin with, an optimistic view on stuff and stuff like that. And then it's very difficult to sit there and deal with the fact and adapt to the idea that maybe this is a little bit more than what I thought it was. And after a while, you have to adapt and adopt the fact that fuck me, I seem to be in a bit more of a situation than I originally thought. And I do believe that it does. I believe that after your injury, the first year is well, it's absolutely the most difficult. The learning curve is just insane, um, both physically, but yes, more so up in the cabeza. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's where my main problem was, mentally.
Yeah, of course. Uh, I have an under my desk heater, man. I was outside for half a day, and my legs all real chewy. Let me shut this down. But continue talking there, kid.
Um, so after rehab and after all that and stuff like that,
And stuff
you
like
know,
that.
when I met Tara, that's when I started to really learn how to adapt to my new life.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's so I would imagine we're dealing with this the initial point and stuff like that. So you started to adapt and everything else like that. So and everything like that and stuff like that. Dude, I got to get rid of that. I don't know what it is. It just won't go away.
That's okay.
That being said, we've talked about both of our origin stories, and we've spoken about the mental adaptations that we had to actually experience. And I would imagine, much like what Gabe said, he also had to go through that. Now, obviously, Gabe has found himself in a bit of an interesting situation. I will say that at the very least, good man. The kid's he's strong up here, dude. That I don't quite understand that he's 10 times the man I am.
He is, absolutely.
Really, man. It's just like I feel like a bit of a prick. I haven't spoken to him in a couple weeks, but hey, you know what? Hey, Gabe, I've been in the middle of something. What do you want from me? That being said, everything with you started to change after you met Tara. And I do believe you said to me that was about 2 years into your injury.
It was 2022.
Well,
So,
2022.
like, what,
4 years ago.
it was like 3.5 years into my injury, I think.
So you got in. What year did you get injured again?
2016.
Okay. And you're oh man, so you were in shit soup for the better part of 8 years, huh?
Yes, right.
Oh boy, oh boy. Oh, and you didn't even open your eyes till like 4 years ago?
No, man. I had bad care. I laid in a bed. I didn't really have nothing to go off of. I couldn't do anything. I
Okay.
mean, I was that low.
Yeah, I can only imagine, dude. All I know is, for me, I was about a little over a year into my injury, and then I moved here. Well, you've been here. I moved here, and I was here. I'm gonna do my best not to swear, but I'm gonna fuck it up. Let's just face simple facts. Um, I was shitting the bed left and right, and once I came here, and I realized what my boys came in and did, and what Mare did for me, and everything else like that. And all of a sudden, I just caught myself one day, and I think I've mentioned to you this before. And I reached out, grabbed those little dumbbells and everything else like that, and stuff like that. And I just got to work, and my head just exploded. I was like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah, it was like for me. Me and Tara started
It's an epiphany, man.
making cookies, and I was learning how to paint, adapting to these new ideas, these new things. And it was like an adventure, and it's been an adventure.
It's always going to be rough, man. You know, this life is not for the weak-hearted, and you know, there's always going to be a point in time that you really have to deal with it. I mean, one of the things, you know, Gabe was just mentioning the fact that, you know, he was depressed for 7 years, and that's, you know, that's a heavy duty thing. And I will say that, you know, depression's a motherfucker, man. You know, that's one thing. It's as far as the adaptation is, once again, the first thing you need to change is your mind, and that's the most difficult. But if you can get this thing on board, you know, you know, the first thing, maybe the heart will follow, and after the heart, yeah, it's just, you know, it's such a ridiculous situation that we found ourselves in that it's very difficult to really figure out what's going on. But let's get away from the origin for a little bit. You know, I mean, well, I believe you were first off, I was under the impression we were going to talk about adaptation, but if you want to talk about evolution, that's fine. You know, because, you know, the evolution is pretty much lays directly on the shoulders of adaptation. You know, because as you evolve, you would, you know, whether you like it or not doesn't really matter. And I will say this for myself. Once again, I do believe we've all met. I am the angry quad. And I am not happy about this situation at all. Actually, it pisses me right the fuck off. But once the angry quad was born, I began to then in turn, I wouldn't say I completely turned into someone else. I just found an entity within myself that was like, fuck this.
And that was like learning when you said, now I can learn to adapt to things.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
like I remember a video of yours, a fingernail clipper. He's going to show you, he's got it right there. I remembered that video.
This thing?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Gabe's got to go. Gabe, thank you very much for stopping by, kid. You mean this bad boy?
Yep.
Yeah. I wasn't able to actually do that only because, you know, I couldn't hold on to this thing. And I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? But I realized that if I was able to stabilize this, I then in turn could probably just push this down so I could take this, put it on my desk, sneak my fingers in, and it all worked out, man. But, you know, that's, once again, part of the evolution. Adaptations, part of evolution. I mean, geez, you know, when man was first brought onto the planet and stuff like that, and we finally started doing stuff. If you've ever seen the beginning of 2001 Space Odyssey, you know, two monkey creatures are coming together. One smacks the shit out of the other one, and the other one goes like that. Man, that sucks ass. They got pushed out of the watering hole. Well, he went back. He picked up a bone, started smacking something around. He was like, this thing is breaking bones. He created a tool. He adapted to a situation. And he went back to the water hole. He was like, bop. He adapted. He overcame.
Right.
You know, and it's just that way. It's just like you don't know what your capabilities are until you put yourself in a situation. Once again, we'll go back to the evolution and adaptation. They're sort of almost synonymous, but they're the same thing, only different. But it's just, you know, from your adaptation and your evolution and stuff like that, I'll do my best to try to curtail that. From those things, and once again, heart and mind, once those things start having you open your eyes to the situation that you found yourself in.
Correct.
And you start thinking about, how can I make this better? Thomas Edison, he has over I think he has 1,000 patents or something along those lines. And he didn't invent 1,000 things. He improved 1,000 things. Obviously, he gets hooked up with, the light bulb. Oh, that's his big go-to thing. Don't get me wrong. If you ask me, it worked out pretty well for that whole thing. You're looking at the computer because it was an invention of light. But his mindset and everything else like that made certain products evolve because he adapted them to do these things. Rather impressive. And that mindset, I mean, just mankind and people in general, you look at something and you go like this, I mean, you're a car guy, you're a music guy. And you're like this, I bet you if I put fatter tires on there, I get better traction. I bet you if I turned up the treble, I'd get a better sound. Well, you figured it all out. You adapted. You adapted your knowledge in order to fit the situation that you were dealing in. And it's just what it is, man. It's just a natural evolution. You have to adapt. You don't have any other options, because the only thing is, if you don't adapt, what happens? When the animals weren't able to figure out what was going on because there wasn't anything to eat, what do? Stay in the same place, or do you move? You evolve. You go like this. Well, this sucks, so I'm going to go somewhere else. So your evolution says go over there, but there's always a couple holdouts. You know what happens to the holdouts that don't follow? They die. And that's one. And it's, I mean, I believe it's probably a terrible thing. I should probably get away from it. But in my videos, a lot of time I talk about the fact that is that you have two options. You evolve, you adapt, or dig the hole, man.
I think that's where I was.
Dude.
I dug the hole. I wasn't ready, and I just didn't care.
Well, it's real difficult. I mean, I'd be lying like Brian, brother, if I didn't tell you that the first year of my injury, I figured out more ways to kill myself than I did tie my shoes. It wasn't until I realized that, well, maybe I can't tie my shoes in the conventional sense. So I figured out a different way. It's just
like your weight idea. You passed that on to me. The tape around the weights.
Of course.
Help me hold
of
the
course.
weights. And
of course. It's always nice not to have drop a weight on your face, because we want to move forward as best we can. I don't think that, fracturing your orbital socket's going to be like a progression. It's just, there's no good that's going to come from that. And, I'd like to believe that health is a really good thing. Obviously, I would say that you agree with me on that one, considering the trials and tribulations that you've been through over the last however long, dude. Dude, you got a tattered story at the very least.
It's like me. Tara has done some stuff around the house, like the mouthwash.
Right.
Okay. I couldn't open the lid, so she got these. Not sure exactly what they are. They're like a rubber thing that goes over it. You open it up, and then I'm able to get the mouthwash. I don't have to open the cap anymore.
Okay, so an adaptation on what existing.
Right.
Much like Thomas Edison found something. He's going like this. I bet there's a better way. There's always going to be a better way. I mean, like I think I've mentioned before, there's a better way. I've been in robots. I've been up and walking. I've been. I don't know, dude. I just every time I turn around, I see a problem, and when I see a problem, I instantly go like this. I got to do better than that. I can come up with a solution, and it may take a little while. It may take me like the strap thing I adapted to my bed with the block and all the rest of that. It took me years to come up with that. I just figured, I'm a tough guy. I got this one. However, after the 10th or 12th time I took the elevator down, and that's a different story in and of itself. I mean, you know, finding yourself on the floor is one thing. That's not an unusual thing. Well, it wasn't for me at least. However, finding myself on the floor buck fucking naked wasn't exactly working, because then I was on the floor going like this, what the, being like a fish out of water. I had to figure out how to get myself dressed and then drag my fat ass across the room, get the other chair, take the other chair, put it in a position, get the bench, put it over there and everything else like that. And it, even the first couple of times, there was no bench. I hadn't gotten there. I hadn't evolved to that situation. However, I was sort of fortunate that there were people around, and the Hoyer lift thing, and and I was like, what up? I was like, this is not good. I have got to be smarter than quadriplegia. And I'm still working on it. However, not quite there yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there. There is so many things like the way that we adapt to this life and our partners, like you got this routine that you have to do and you adapt to it and then you add to it every day.
Of course. Once again, you got like this much knowledge. And then if you put this much knowledge to another this much knowledge, then you got this much knowledge. However, if you take that much knowledge and you add to that, then you got that much knowledge. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And hopefully, God willing, you'll retain the early lessons instead of just, sticking with the latest one. And you put them all together, and it's just that way, man. It's just, the world is going to continue to spin. You can either watch that thing go by, because every time the world goes, it's every time the sun comes up and sun comes down, or the earth goes around the sun, or whatever the hell happens. I don't know. I'm not an astronomer. However, every day you're one day older. And much like Pink Floyd, one day closer to death, man. And I would like to live with at least purpose and try to make some type of impact before that day comes. I want to grow old, but I want to be as young as possible when I get old.
Right.
And, this situation has found me in a rather interesting situation, but I'd like to believe I'm rising to the challenge. However, I don't want it to challenge. I want to be able to, sneak off into my golden years, not having to fight every day for every little biscuit that I got to get. But it seems to me that between me, you, and about another 5 million that I couldn't even come up with the top of my head, that we've found ourselves right in the middle of the fist fight of our lives, man.
And there's some really good and cool tools out there that quads have made, paralyzed people have made, like the quad tool that I have that I get down to pick things up.
Yeah, the boys were talking about that one thing the other day, the one quad reacher thing with the magnet and the hook and everything. I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I got the quad tool. It does help a lot. Especially like if I drop a weight on the floor, I sometimes can't get down to get it. So I use that to pick the weight up.
Okay. Well, my suggestion: try not to get it if you're not buckled in, kid, because
I know, I know.
you're gonna learn a hell of a lesson there, champ. Don't do it. Don't learn the lessons I've already done. You know what I mean? I've fallen out of my chair so many times, and it's not cool. I mean, I'm fortunate because my bone density is still pretty good, which is great. However, um, you should avoid that as best you can. But that be said, you know what? We're all going to make mistakes and everything else like that. But I will say one thing I find really amazing about the injuries and the impact to not only to yourself but everybody around you. I like to call this the hand grenade theory, because you get injured, okay, and the injury is to yourself. But much like a hand grenade with all the shrapnel, you affect everybody around you.
Yes, me and
And
Terrence.
it's just, everybody gets an injury. And as much as you're sitting there being like, "What's up, bitches?" They're also on the other side of the spectrum going, "Yes, what the fuck now?" And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, "What the fuck now?" You're almost looking into a mirror with the emotion and everything else like that goes along with it. It's very, very difficult. It's just,
Because
it's one skin.
it's not just we that have to adapt. They have to adapt
Yeah,
to our
very,
life.
very much so. And it's that's a lot to ask, man. And I think I mentioned this to you before. Sorry, I keep trying to get this oblique to come back, but
That's all right.
fist fighting for a while. I've adapted. I have a block underneath this part of my chair so that the thing goes up. It's like a wedge under the cushion and stuff like that. But
I had to do that to my last chair. Tear put a
yeah,
wedge up on the left side so I'd stop falling over.
yeah, you guys adapted, man. Um, but the thing is,
It does, you're right. It's a hand grenade. It
yeah, and
affects
it's just
everyone around us.
yeah, But once again, I'm sorry I keep pausing. I'm not losing my train of thought. What
It's
I'm
okay.
doing is I'm trying to think about what I could say. So I don't swear or say stuff like that.
And stuff
I don't
like
want to
that.
seem like a complete and total ignoramus. But it's difficult when you're me. But the entire aspect of everything is just it's just a difficult situation. And in trying to forget the downside and be optimistic and everything is it sounds easy, probably looks great on paper, but it's a difficult proposition. So you just I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just that you have to look at a problem and you have to figure a solution. It's one of the reasons that I told you that I spoke to Dr. Goldsmith today, and the research guy out of the VA and everything, and we were just talking for a little bit, and he actually wants to show up, and I think he'll be awesome. He wants to talk about some of the promising research that's out there that's been around for the last 5 years, some things that they're getting positive results from. I don't know exactly what that is. We didn't really get into that whole thing. I'll have to put together some type of format that we'll discuss. But I remember when I actually got into research. And once again, I figured there was going to be something, as I stated prior, being in the robot. They made a walking exoskeleton so that they can actually put on, and they've adapted it so that you can actually move around. exactly where that entire thing is going to go, I don't know, but I do know that I'm going to be involved. That's an absolute. But all those little things that they do as they adapt to things and the evolution of all that, it's very, it's, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if they're beating the right side of the horse or whatever, whatever it might be. But I mean, I want to be on the front line. That's an absolute. So,
Right.
exactly where that ends up and how we go about everything. But, that's something that, early on, I realized that considering the fact that I was injured and I was in a place that was a big research, institute, well, like I have got to see this. So it's just, I had to change my mind to change my life, man. And, that's something that I had a struggle with for quite some time. It's just impossible not to. But as I continued to do whatever it was I was doing, and I saw a problem,
You
I
started
had
to
to come
fix
up
it.
with little solutions, everything.
Yeah, it's like I just posted a couple shorts about how
Okay.
we stay at a motel,
Okay.
and
I saw that.
we had to figure this out over many hotel stays to get where it's comfortable, and we have learned to adapt to this.
Hmm.
Um, like our chair, like I can't sleep in a motel bed. Like I
Oh, I
can't,
saw Tara doing the chair.
yeah, I can't move around in that bed. Like I feel stuck. And with my breathing problems and secretions, I need to be like pretty much straight up.
Elevated.
So she came up with this plan to do the chair with a pressure mat. It make me feel more comfortable. So I mean,
Oh,
it's things
does
like
it
that.
also does it recline a little bit? I didn't
Yeah,
really see you
yeah.
in it.
I can
Okay.
recline it a little bit.
Okay. The legs come up and all
Yep,
the rest of that
yep.
madness. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. It didn't really go into that entire detail. However, um, I had a feeling that was the story, but what we've never spoken about this. So,
No.
but however, hey, got you through the night. You look pretty good. You know what I mean? It seems that it worked out all right.
Yeah, we're actually going to start doing this more, going to motels and learning just what can be good for us and maybe other quads out there that want to travel.
No, I agree. I mean, depends on the availability of said chairs and things of that nature. So that's
Right.
certainly something you need to look into. But I will say, I mean, dude, you bounce around a hell of a lot more than I do. You know what I mean? I'm pretty much a homebody, but then again, I've always been a homebody. So I'm not saying that my life hasn't changed because other than the fact of you know working 10 to 12 hours a day and all the rest of that stuff, which I miss dearly. Man, I just wish I
I
could break
miss
my
it too.
knuckles on something again.
I miss it. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I know. It's not that I don't have a sense of purpose. It's not that I don't keep myself busy, but it's a different busy. It's something, I'm a goon, man. I gotta smash things, put them back together. I gotta use machines. I gotta come home bloody. I gotta come home like it's in there coughing because I sucked in 500 tons of pollen. I gotta sit there and wonder, how did I get this dirty? This is impossible. I gotta cry if I sit on my, I'm not a desk guys. So all this editing and stuff like that, this is not me. I'm a goon, dude. And I don't make any bones about it, man. It's just is what it is.
But it definitely helps other people.
I'd like to believe so. You
I
know what I mean?
mean, I know from experience. I know this guy that helped me. So I mean, it's learning to adapt to life is hard.
Well, once again, the thing that I say, I know I keep doing this. I keep going back to certain things that I say, certain situations that I've been involved in, but the biggest turn for you was here.
Correct.
You changed your mind and you changed your life, Rob. And that's really important for anybody that may still be watching. I don't really think there's a lot of people watching this thing, but even still, if you don't change your mind, you're never going to change your life. It's really just the mental aspect of the entire injury or just life in general is, what? It's, you have to have a different perspective. You have to have a different outlook. You have to have it. You have to have it. You have to have it. You have to have. And if you don't, well, then you're going to be, doing the Groundhog Day thing. You're going to live your life every day, and every day is going to be exactly the same as it was yesterday. And once again, if you keep doing that, dig the hole, because all you're going to do is just, you're not just going to be a waste of oxygen, you'll be a waste of pollution. You'll be a waste of it. All you're doing is taking up space and eating resources and, drinking fresh water that somebody else can have. And, it's just, so you have to have some purpose. I mean, I started this channel because I didn't like the training that I saw. And I realized the training that I was doing was working for me. And then slowly but surely, from that, I started coming up with this idea, that idea, and then I realized I have a big mouth. So I was like, okay, and I started flapping about certain situations that I found myself in, and I bitch, moan, carried on, and everything else like that. I figured out how to get myself on the floor on and off safely. I mean, it's easy to get on the floor. I did a video about that. I just actually just launched myself out of the chair, and I was like, all right, now what? God willing, I didn't break anything, but that's not a good idea.
Right.
But it was just once again the progression or the evolution, and I actually can look at the videos from like 10, 12 years ago, and I'm like, damn, man, I was doing that back then. I've gotten better. It's once again, it's just sort of recording your own archives and recording your own progression or a very distinct possibility. Maybe in a couple of years from now, I'm noticing my own degression. Much like yourself, who seems that you're on an upswing. So I say, God bless you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I can say the last 4 years has been absolutely amazing. I've actually found purpose, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's obviously you reinvented yourself, and it may be an image of your old self that has to combine and evolve with your new self. But you're yourself. I would imagine that a lot of aspects of your personality and everything are still the same. Me, yes, no. I mean, I still have my attitude problem, which was always there. And my biggest attribute and everything is confidence. I don't quite understand it, which, it took a lot of, dents and scratches, and there's a lot of patina going on, but it's still intact, which I find amazing. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely learned to adapt to life over the last 4 years. From training, the Tower of Power, bands, weights.
Yeah. Well, you figure that, man, and you make them your own. You have to have your own evolution. You have to figure that out yourself. That's one of the things I've always stressed to not only you, but there's multiple people I've spoken to. And I'm like, dude, I'll give you this thing. I can show you what I do, but you have to do you. It's just, there's no way around it. It's nobody can be you. It took you a while to be you, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you know, I do these videos and stuff and lives like this, and I get so nervous, and I feel like I lose my head sometimes.
Wow.
I don't know. I just really just want to help people.
Well, of course.
I want to make a difference.
Of course. Of course. That's why I got involved in research, man. You know, I don't want to be like, whoa, look at me, the anointed one. You know, I'd like to believe I originally got involved with it for, selfish reasons because I was like, that's something that might be able to help me. Then all of a sudden I was like, smack, smack. And I was like, you got to be a little more altruistic than that one, man. This injury doesn't just affect me, it affects you. And if, there's, once again, there's like, I don't know, I'm going with 5 million. The number's probably bigger just in the United States, but it's you can't just think that it's going to do good for you. And if something does do good for you, do your best to climb to the mountaintop and scream so that other people may hear. And if this is the medium that we have to use to scream, by all means, man. And that's one of the things with Dr. Goldsmith is that hopefully he'll be able to, give a platform and a boost to others that are interested in, getting involved in such things, because it gives you a deep sense of satisfaction and a feeling of accomplishment, even though you may not experience any improvement, but just the fact that you're in the fight, it gives you that sense of purpose. It gives you like, oh, fuck yeah. All right, I'm doing something today. I'm just like, what they do to you today, Sean? Well, they put a big brain out on my head and electrocuted me for 45 minutes, and they hung me from the ceiling in a harness, and they swung me back and forth, and they beat me with sticks. What was the reason for that? I don't know, but everybody was laughing, and they said they had a great session. Excellent. Whatever. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious, but still at the same time, there's stuff that wasn't really that far off of that whole thing, but it's just it's just cool. It's just cool. And it's much like the whole video thing and stuff. It's just we have to scream and yell. And as I've mentioned on several occasions, not just to you, but many, 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 many others, if you ever come to the situation where you sit there and you think that perhaps maybe there's something I can do, a little bit of wisdom out of this big stupid head, or a little bit of help, a tower, don't get me wrong. It doesn't seem like much. It's just a piece of wood. But, much like, exactly. But, much like the club that the first guy came up with, it was just a piece of bone. But, everybody else grabbed that piece of bone. Well, they go, yeah, we're taking over, bitches. But and if there's some information that you have that you can share with someone, that would just, maybe it's the thing that Rohan was talking about the other day with the little grabber and stuff like that. If you look at that, it's a piece of metal that's bent around in such a way you can pick it up. But if nobody else ever thought about it, what? Unlike those things and stuff like that, I just give my shit away because I think a lot of the things that I come up with they're too valuable to try to charge people, because a lot of people don't really have the money. I mean, this little thing, like we had spoke about before, it's just a piece of, ABS that I've taken. What do you got now? Okay. Yeah, look at it. All right, look, they obviously did some thinking about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'd probably come up with a much more rudimentary thing, but even still with this, I've made I don't know, 20 of them. They're all over the place. I don't know who's using them, who's not using them, but all I know is it worked for me. And it's not exactly still. It's still not easy to use, but it's a little more stable. You
Yeah, I
know,
said to Tara today, before this show, I was like, what if we adapted? I don't know what I have, I don't know what around the house that I have made or figured out. And we're
well,
pointing out all these things.
of course. Well, you don't realize it till you start looking. I mean, even your workspace, dude. You know what I mean? There's no things in front of you and shit like that. Well, you've seen my workspace.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
this desk is sat up on these blocks about this high to make the desk higher so I
okay.
can go under it.
Of course, of course. Hey, if you ever get to a situation, I'll give you a real solution, brother. I'll make it so you can. If you smash into that, will you knock it over?
Probably not.
What if you
Maybe
did a
so.
really? What if you did a really good job?
Oh yeah, I'd probably take it out.
I can't knock this one over.
So that's why me and Tara can't wait to get our house so we can make them
A little bit more indestructible.
right.
But all right, Chief. Let's start wrapping it up here. I don't know if there's anybody left on the chat, but if anybody has any questions, and if anybody needs to know anything, angryquad@gmail.com. It's the end of on the end of every one of my videos. By all means, reach out, touch faith, and we'll just figure out from wherever we're gonna go to wherever we're gonna be, man. It's not really a lot of options here, kid.
Yeah. And the shows will get better. I'll stop stumbling over my words.
Man, you don't stumble over. You don't flap as much as I do. It's just these are facts we just know to be true.
I
I
think
don't
I
shut
get
the fuck up.
lost
I
sometimes.
I don't shut the fuck up, man. You know, if I'm babbling on and you're just like, all right, Quad, shut up. Like, whatever it is. Well, this will be the secret password. Shut the fuck up.
But I want to let everybody out there know thank you for the support. And
Absolutely.
we'll be back next Wednesday and we'll let you know what the show's about.
Yeah, well, we'll chit chat about that whole thing.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys in the next one.